Hello, GUADEC. I'm Ron Krishna. I'm here to give my talk. It looks like it's the last talk of the track of the last day. So I hope you had a great GUADEC. And I'm sorry I was not there to spend it with you all, but my circumstances prevented me from traveling, and so I must give this talk in virtually. So, um, with that in place, I'm going to start my talk here. So my talk is Building the Fundraising Engine. My name is Sriram Ramakrishna. For those who don't know me, I'm a long-time GNOME contributor who's deeply interested in fundraising and engagement. So that's me. Um, I thought this talk was pretty important to give because it is, um, I've done a few or helped in a few fundraising campaigns, and I could see that the community has been quite sensitive about the idea of fundraising and the need for it. I put this talk together to maybe start this conversation, see what this kind of engine might look like, and how can we prepare to really build something that can scale uh, to something that's sustainable. So we'll first start with the big picture. Most of us know that we have gov we get funds from community, business, and recently government. So with the STF funds, so all those goes into the GNOME Foundation. The GNOME Foundation helps out with hackfests and conferences and swag and food. We have this recent fellowship that we're currently doing. We have staff, we have contractors, and we have legal. So these are all the kind of things that we're doing. Um, and we would love to do more, right? And so um, it really comes out of this quote, fundraising is the right ask to the right person at the right time, right? And um, I looked at the talk is sort of based on the Alchemist talk. We did a thing called storytelling, networking, and strategy, was in 2025. And I really found her talk compelling. So I've taken some aspects of it and saying, okay, how can we apply this to GNOME? So the three things or aspects of um, fundraising and storytelling. People tell you we need to tell stories. Networking, getting those stories out there, and then strategizing how, when, right? Going back to that committing about timing, how to get there, and help donors make a decision to be a donor, right? Potential responsible donors. And as part of storytelling, when we build story, we need to understand why do donors give money? And donors give money because they want to make it of some sort. Um, the message connects them with them at something that's personal and emotional level. And then finally, companies give because it gives it aligns with their business, right? So this is why primarily donors, whether individuals or corporations or whatever, they give us money because there's something that connects them, that there's an impact, either there's an emotional, personal, or business, or business something. This is a study in 2023 with affluent donors reporting um, like what motivates them, right? It's always good to have some kind of metrics to kind of understand. And here you'll see there's mission, happiness, and being asked. And you'll know that in the mission, you can see that if 60%. This is correct. And if they believe in your mission, they will give us money, or they will give the nonprofit money. And I thought that was a really interesting and compelling metric. There, there is also the idea of happiness. Yeah. Are the people happy with the things we are doing? And um, in this case, there's a squishy 55% or so, and then there is this 30% who will give, and then there's a right. But in general, happiness is a pretty big factor. But you can see some other things in here, and that's also kind of interesting. Is spontaneously response or social justice, or kind of interesting things reactory that most don't get because because it's a tax write. So and then they being asked, right, is the big thing, and so there's a big chance that somebody be it may not be, it may just be a maybe. Um, Not many just saying no, but it's like, well, maybe it's not now, right? And then again, it's the idea of is when is it convenient? You have to keep asking. So we're starting with storytelling. So what is the mission, right? We looked in there. What is the mission? And our mission, basically, the foundation website says we believe in a world where everyone is empowered by technology they can trust. We do this by building a diverse and sustainable free software personal computing ecosystem. So that's what our mission is. That's where we have people who align with us. And that's what our storytelling should be based on. Then there's the networking. Networking always starts with people your peer groups, so forth. Then people who believe in your core mission. And then communities and networks that value your mission. And then finally, there's the general public. So those are, in general, the kind of audience you have to work with. But the further you go away from your core group, the weaker your connection to it. Right? Clearly, we're not going to have a really super strong connection to the general populace. They're trying to explain free software principles. There's a huge lift there. Strategy is understanding when is the right time. When did that maybe become a yes, right? And that timing is and the thing, and the donor board are two messaging, and that's usually around kind of during our core, right? Milestones and a bunch of the peak time holiday season. Maybe maybe at an event where there's a keynote where you're participating or something that alerts you them to your presence. Or talk when certain topics are trending on social media, right? This is not only less of us. There could be a completely different set of us, but these are the things that came to me. And you might have a bit of influence yourself on what these examples would be based on your experience. So how do I apply, or how do we apply the storytelling to networking and strategy, right? So before we get into that, I do want to do a disclaimer. This part of the presentation this is not any based on any discussion looking on board or any actionable plans. This is not something to review or anything like that. This is my opinion and my ideas based on my experience and observations. So and it really is a community effort. And so I want to be clear that, there's nothing official going on. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's start talking about storytelling. Let's talk about our strategy. And the first one is telling our story, right? We can tell our stories through three methods. One, there's the human stories, there is the impact stories, and then there's the value story, right? So let me go through them and kind of define what these mean, right? The human stories are humanistic stories that show gnomes' impact on people or on a community. Now, this is an example. It's fake. There is no uh, um, such partnership. But here, GNOME partners with Free Geek to provide free recycled computers with GNOME pre-installed to children who experience marginalization. Now, Free Geek is a recycle tech center. People take their junk, their tech junk, they take it to Free Geek, and they kind of repair it and kind of get it back into a thing, with a little shape, and then they sell it or they do something else with it, that kind of thing, right? Um, so they're really in kind of that right to repair type of community. Now, there's a few observations with that very big story. One, and there was another thing, it does support our mission of building a personal computing ecosystem. It connects with the children's community, so those folks know that GNOME is helping their community. It connects with low carbon and right to repair community. So if you're into, having a low carbon footprint, it disaligns with your values. If you're into right to repair, this aligns with your values. And they see GNOME as a fellow traveler. And of course, having these partnerships demonstrates how powerful they are when trying to build connections. And it gives us the opportunity to make those human connections. Impact stories. Impact stories is where we had a challenge that we overcame and made a positive change, right? One that comes to mind, we had at least two of these legal ones, and I picked this one simply because it's more recent. Although I was more very involved in the first one, which was the trademark battle with Groupon. But this one shows an impact with numbers that kind of like, somebody attacked us and we turn around and we invalidate their patents, it was a big way for the free software. Some observation against we centered our mission. We made working on free software more safe because there's less chance of patent fraud. That led to a big impact on the software industry. We created a legal precedent in the sense that if somebody decides they want to take on GNOME, there's like at least two different legal case studies or that says, hey, don't attack this farm. They've beaten everyone, right? So there's a lot of documentation. We demonstrate a person who is not helpless. We have we have claws, and people should take part. And that is a big impact. Then we have the values story. The values stories are stories that demonstrate our values to perceive by improving ourselves, right? When we improve GNOME, we're improving the versatility, the utility of free software. And in this case, here by improving ourselves with the arts, we're using our funds to help have Sophie here to establish an art part is a value story. And it's once again where it centralizes our mission. Donors know that their money is having an impact on the future of GNOME and the future of free software. They believe that already now. We support our volunteer community through opportunity, giving opportunities to the people who give away their engineering time for free. We have giving them a way to upscale themselves while we're in some way jam. So that's storytelling. Now let's talk about networking. And the first part of networking is defining and reaching our audiences. We define our audience in networks and learn where they're looking. So again, as you said before, the core is your peer networks. And then there's free software, Linux users, and so again, this is not anything official. This is simple like sorting. You know, where we as a community may have to decide what is the right strategy, who is our allies, and so forth. But these are who I believe is important that I've heard and read who value us. Then there's the idea of how to reach your audience. Well, I know who your audience is. How do you reach them? So we already talked about those. I sort of got ahead of myself in the slides, but uh, we talked about peer networks. Meet them where they are. That means we're going to meet them on, reach out to them on social media, in-person events and conferences. You know, the in-person events are pretty powerful because they um they're local and it's not like people coming up far and meeting and going away again. These I went to one yesterday and I met like a CEO and a CTO and a bunch of other people and what I said kind of resonated with them in many ways, especially when it came to safety and data integrity and security. Those are things that, you know, an open source project where you know what's in it is something that intrigued them. So, you know, it's a great way to find new allies, especially near your area where you can continually keep doing your outreach. Then there's TikTok and Instagram for general outreach, you know, the free software, our still mission is to grow too, right? If you are, we are a political movement. We want to spread free software. And so sometimes we have to go to places where people congregate and hopefully some kind of messaging um, reaches them because it's important. Strategy. So build the strategy defines. So you know, we have all these elements. We figured out so how do we put them together? And I think this is where the ambassador program and as I demonstrated the partnership charities, the ambassador program are really my center here because they the kind of folks on the ground, right? If you went to the just talk, he talks about how he helped build a community for 300 people, and that's amazing because that's 300 people who are doing things locally in their local community, and there's storytelling there. There's storytelling between the stories of the people who are in that community or stories that they are doing that affects the community around them. And because they're in person, it really strikes them. It really the humanistic part, right? Like the seeing and believing, right? Is a thing. And that's also why partnership with charities is important because that's combining the two together, you can create an impact in every every neighborhood, country, or society you're in around the world. And again, you're supporting the mission in this fashion by doing it in the most purest form of communication humanly given. Then when it comes to strategy for impact stories, we have like things we're doing with the SDF funds, how we took a bunch of money and did something with it. Same thing working with companies, nonprofits. You know, there are all these impacts, right? How are we improving the ecosystem on us? right? Even the story of Black Flatback is an impact story where they're creating ways um, that um, giving freedom to software developers to create something and then have it work everywhere in ubiquitously. So yeah, those are great things. Um, Value stories. We're doing that right now. The fellowship on improvement to solve our problem. Their release is filled with things. Members doing amazing things, contributing in many ways. So all those things are really cool, and people really do enjoy them and give them reason to say, hey, come on, solving my problem, uh, and so on. And then moving on to strategy for networking, after all that, identify for networking, you want to identify more, I gave a list of audiences, an exhaustive list, what those audiences are, where they live, virtually or in person, then map content you have to the networks that you know, right? You know where those folks are. This is where we're present. Let's try in some things for right to work or right to repair and so forth. And then figure out what land, right? So if you have, and then of course if there are places where we should be, then we need to plan how can we have a presence there, so that we can be part of those networks. Um, and in addition, you want to find allies, domain experts, YouTube influencers, or whatever. I did some of this when using Loss as a way to expand our influences is to do that, right? Is find ways to meet them where they are. Find events and conferences and small meetups. I told you how important the small meetups are. They're extremely powerful. Then there's the leverage and Fedora, the existing community networks like Fedora, Ubuntu, and others. They're very mature in community networks, and they have a lot of. I want to say there's a lot of investment in them. They're a core part of those platforms, and they are promoters in many ways, right? So we want to be able to work with them, Elisha, so forth. And so we have this strategy for our content, for our network, and everything is super cool. We're done. Yeah, that's it. What do you think? Well, it's like you need sustainability. But just do it with campaign, do the outreach, tell the story, and then move on to the next one. Once you bring new donors in, you have to keep them. And that means engaging with them and keeping them continue to give us money because if they're not catered to in some fashion, we will drop off. And it's important because that they're our core group, right? They're not just supporters, they're supporters willing to donate month after month uh to nourish us, right? And so we need to manage and communicate with them in some way or form so they feel valued in some fashion. And so there's a few ways you can do that, right? One is make sure that when we have things we're doing on funded GNOME projects, that we give it to them, especially and tell them to share on their network, just like ours. they have their own networks, and where their core is their peer networks. So if a donor is enthusiastic about things they do, let them tell other folks, hey, this is great, this is what they're doing, you should fund it too, right? And remember, a lot of donors are also volunteers. I am both a donor and a volunteer, right? I give in both ways. And so it's important that you give them links that they can use. Periodical out and increase your contribution. That's an important part. Make sure they have their contributions. Personal communication from the board. Well, maybe if we had level where like you're silver, gold, or platinum, or something like that, and if you're giving $100 a month, well, you get a personal thank you from all of us in the Canome board, and something like that, right? Something that marks there was one person who gave $5,000 was donor, right? And so I think I was on the board at that time, we sent him a card or something, things like that, right? Storytelling to the network per month. That's another thing. Uh, so there is also then next the other donors are important, right? They're your large donor donor. You want to encourage them to make sure so want to be on the board, to stay on the board. Yeah, so you encourage them to get. And what are some of the other things you do with your your other donors, right? So well, at this bullet point, we definitely want to have a listen and see what they're because especially if they themselves are using Genome internally at their company, they have some stake right in there. That's free feedback that we can use that's validated. That's kind of thing. So, especially making sure within the limits and authority of the own foundation, right? Uh, and then make sure that we're sharing the same things we're sharing with others, give them shareable links, send them that we send them to G or friends of good people, send them out, let them do things, that kind of stuff. Copy the storytelling, all the storytelling we've done for the year, whatever, like, yeah, this is the great things you did, this is where the money came in, help our project. And that may be something they can tell them, especially those guys giving value, like re-affecting ecosystems, and they get dragged into with, hey, we help with that, that kind of thing. Um, and another one is managing partnerships, managing partnerships. If we have partnerships, they help them. We want to make sure uh, we keep them active. Check-ins from alignment opportunities, aligned storytelling. That's one of them. Then maybe there's things like right to work that might align with some folks, and they can talk about that. Request to push our content to their network, maybe our newsletter, things like that. Those are great things. And then see if there's other partners. How can we grow? How can we make more partners? Oh, whew. It's that's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? The engagement team is only like 5 to 6 people, and active people who are doing amazing work. To optimize this fundraising engine, though, we need to optimize in a way it should be. We need to grow, we need to be efficient. And 5 to 6 people is not enough to do what I'm talking about. But there's definitely an onboarding need. We need to grow our team. We've always been undernourished across all the teams, and this is really something that we need to really kind of focus on is how can we make this onboarding better? I know personally I've seen people going down when how do we keep them here? How do we make it a sustainable, fun place to work? Because it is a volunteer work. It shouldn't feel like work. It should be fun. So that's something we need to think about. And so my closing thoughts is, a fundraising is a non-stop cycle. You're gonna get you, and this engine is gonna help us with that. We can do this. We can do this with the help of the ground community, free software community, and all that. We really need to grow. And so the call for action here is that we need to grow a robust group of people who can help with fundraising and onboarding. There are people who could help with the ambassador. So, if you're interested in helping and these challenges excite you, contact. Let's talk. My credit is actually the right time is adapt for this talk is the one adapted from Randy Cookers, who's the chief funding officer for openness, and a great human being. And of course, all my slides are very colors, so thank you very much for that. And yeah, for my slide, I just wanna here's my contact. Let you know. So see you there. I'm gonna go and do some questions. Cheers.